Welcome back to the Be That Life podcast. I'm in Tallinn, Estonia with someone super incredible, and I'm super excited that he's here, Shawn Wells, the #1 world formulator of supplements. And wow, what an honor to sit down with you and talk about all things supplements.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So how's your experience been in Tallinn so far at the Lime Valley University? Have you had fun?
It's been incredible.
Yeah.
I've hung out at a lot of events with you, and it's gorgeous here. I love this old world feel. It's like being transported back into like the medieval times, and it's just gorgeous here.
Totally. I feel like it's like a boot camp that I don't ever want to leave from. You know, I feel like honestly 2 weeks, I've been here a week, but I'm going to stay 2 weeks. It feels like it's too short. Mm-hmm. You know, the people that you meet and the experiences that we have is truly amazing. And then connecting with you as well has been so wonderful. We also were together at the Biohacking Summit in Finland recently.
Absolutely.
And that was amazing. So to come here and experience the stage on here with you too, it's wonderful. So really, again, thank you so much. Shawn, today I want to talk about some very important topics surrounding supplements. As you know, I have my own supplement brand as well. You have worked in many, you co-founded many and have exited many as well. And you've done some amazing things in that space. And for someone who is so passionate about supplements, you know, this topic is so important for me and also for my audience, because I want them to really understand the do's and don'ts when they want to buy their own supplements. And also, you know, the myths that we want to bust, and also the importance of trying to understand in the specific stages of life what works and what doesn't work. We're going to do maybe 6 science-backed techniques on the kind of supplements someone needs to take starting from maybe their 20s and then progressing from there. So before we get to that, I would love for you to just talk a little bit about what made you get into the supplement space.
That's a great question. You know, I grew up, my mom was very passionate about supplements. Even in the 70s, she had like one of the, you know, the tackle boxes with all the different supplements. And she had a brand from Europe called Shaklee that's still around today. And it's more like whole food vitamins. And this was before I knew anyone was taking vitamins. And right around that time in the early 80s is when Linus Pauling came out with research on vitamin C going beyond scurvy, going beyond 60 milligrams. And we started looking at vitamins having power beyond deficiency and thinking about vitamins that can actually improve our health, optimize our health. People taking vitamin C in gram levels. And it was a massive paradigm shift. And when I was sick, she would give me extra vitamins. And so that kind of affected my path forward and how I felt about nutrition. But, you know, ultimately, when I got to college, I started working out. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor was very impressed with, fat I had lost, muscle I had put on. And I was so passionate talking about all these supplements. Creatine was new, and I was getting great effects from that. And I thought the doctor was just kind of going to make fun of all these supplements. And instead, he saw my passion, and he drew out a lifeline from 20 to 80 and said, why not be happy between here and here? I was in school for business, and I had never had someone tell me to go chase my dreams. And this doctor did that. He really gave me the permission in that moment to just live out my dreams, knowing that life is finite and I can have a career in the things that I really enjoy instead of just doing business because that's smart. And of course, business school was helpful. But I ended up in that moment in between my sophomore and junior year saying, I am going to get all the schooling I need to become a dietitian, a chemist, a biochemist, and become a formulator. And that's exactly what I did. I ended up getting several years of college on all these prerequisite sciences and then getting my master's at Chapel Hill in nutrition and biochemistry, becoming a dietitian, working for about 10 years clinically as a chief clinical dietitian, but also working as a biochemist and formulating supplements. And since then, I have formulated about 1,100 supplements. I've patented about 40 ingredients. I've helped build about 75 companies and exited about 12 of them. And it's been an exciting career. I have a best-selling book called The Energy Formula on biohacking and supplement stacks. And it's been a very incredible career.
That's so impressive. Take me back to the first time you made a supplement. You formulated one. Which one was it?
It was a pre-workout. I was just a guy on bodybuilding.com on these message boards, and a small supplement company owner found me and he said, could you help me formulate a supplement? I think he was going to pay me maybe like $500 or $1,000 at the time, but I would get to design the supplement. And this is a supplement that was only online. It wouldn't have been in retail, small brand, and it was called Ultima. And I made a very expensive, effective pre-workout, and people loved it. And that was like the start of it. But I remember when I first saw a product in GNC and Vitamin Shop that was mine, that was like akin to a musician hearing their song on the radio or something. It was like so self-affirming. Like when I got to see my product on the shelf, like I wanted to grab everyone and have them come witness, this is my product, this is my product. And now when I go in, a GNC or a Vitamin Shop, maybe like a third of the products in the store are mine.
A lot of the pre-workouts don't contain sugar. What were the ingredients in yours?
Definitely no sugar. I was definitely far ahead of the curve on things like creatine, beta-alanine. I was one of the first to use that. Citrulline malate. I was one of the first to use that. A number of these ingredients that are now commonplace in pre-workouts, I was far ahead of the curve on, and in many cases, first to bring it to market. And
a lot of the pre-workouts as well have a little bit of caffeine.
They do. And I am not a big fan of caffeine. And that actually led to me, because I don't metabolize caffeine well. I have the CYP 1A2 gene where I don't metabolize caffeine well. I'm a slow metabolizer of caffeine. And about 60% of the population is. So most of us do not experience caffeine well. The flip side of that is a fast metabolizer where they can have caffeine and go straight to bed. And so they really get none of the benefits, and at least they don't have the side effects. I get none of the benefits and all the side effects. There is a Goldilocks zone in between where about 20% of the population experiences caffeine well, but that means 80% of us do not. And that led me to come out with my own ingredients to replace caffeine that are now the most popular in the world besides caffeine, especially in pre-workouts, energy drinks, fat burners. So T-creen was the first one I came out with. It was an ingredient called theacrine. Then next, dynamine, which is methylliberine. And my newest one that I came out with last year is called paraxanthine, a metabolite of caffeine, and the branded name is Infinity. And that's now in most of these products. Most people do not like caffeine for their workouts anymore because it leaves them frazzled, leaves them with poor sleep, especially if you're working out in the evening. Paraxanthine you could take at 6 p.m. and still get great sleep by 10:30.
Like I'm someone that stopped taking pre-workouts such a long time ago because I used to have those same symptoms. But for our listeners who don't understand what those three ingredients are, can you just elaborate a little bit?
Sure. I mean, paraxanthine, I think most importantly, is the metabolite of caffeine. So that means that when you consume caffeine, it will convert in your body to one of three things: theophylline, theobromine, or paraxanthine. And about 80% of that is converting to paraxanthine, which is the thing that truly has all the benefits. Caffeine actually has almost all the side effects and toxicity. It's actually not good for your body. It's in plants to repel insects, actually. So it's a way plants actually protect themselves, is having caffeine in the plant. But when we demethylate caffeine and remove this 3-methyl group to paraxanthine, that's where we actually see most of the benefit, is in this compound. The problem is, even though it's an 80% conversion, the problem is how long it takes. And for slow metabolizers like me, it can take up to 3 days to metabolize that caffeine.
That's crazy.
That caffeine can be sitting in your body for days.
And you're consuming coffee every day.
Exactly. And this is why we're agitated, irritated, brain fog, anxiety, sleep disruption. The slower metabolizer you are, like I'm saying, the half-life can be 10 and a half hours. So that means you have half the amount 10 and a half hours later in your system, then half that another 10 and a half hours later.
Can you test for that?
Yes.
What's the test?
The genetic test, just if you do broad genetic testing, you'll find out about the CYP1A2 gene.
Okay. And then talk to me about the other two compounds.
Theacrine, which is called T-crine, and methylliberine, which is called dynamine. These are methyl uric acids. They're similar to methylxanthines like caffeine, theobromine, theophylline, but they are a cleaner experience. They are metabolized more cleanly than caffeine and most certainly theophylline. So they have been popular. I've had them out on the market for about 12 years. And people love these ones, but I think the next evolution is the infinity, the paraxanthine, because it is the most clean. We've actually shown in a study when we compare it to caffeine that caffeine increases mental errors. They're both stimulants. Caffeine increases mental errors significantly. Paraxanthine decreases mental errors. We're actually showing it improves neuroplasticity, increasing BDNF. It increases blood flow to the brain via nitric oxide. It increases dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine so that you feel better as well as brain functioning better. So it's just a massive change. In our preclinicals, we're also showing that it decreases beta amyloid plaque, which is a cause for Alzheimer's. So we're seeing that it's very neuroprotective. When we did a preclinical study, meaning with rodents, we actually saw that we had about this size, a pool with black water so that the mice can't see the ledge. There's a small ledge somewhere in this pool. And you show them that ledge, but then drop them in the middle, and you have aged mice. And it took about 60 seconds for the mice to swim around and finally find the edge. And then if you gave them paraxanthine, it took about 20 seconds.
Wow.
That's not like statistical significance. Statistical significance would be like 3, 4, 5 seconds faster. This is cutting it in a third.
Right.
So especially we're believing, we haven't done studies with the elderly yet or aging. I mean, I'm 50, so I'm not elderly yet.
Yes, you just celebrated your birthday.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's going to be even more dramatic in a brain like mine. Most of the studies we're doing are in, 20-year-olds, like collegiate males typically is who you get. And so to cut that kind of time to improve memory, to improve executive function in the brain, that's really exciting. Especially the most exciting thing to me is neuroplasticity.
Yep.
Because that's fluid intelligence. We have two types of intelligence. We have crystallized intelligence, which is as we age, that actually improves. We get smarter and smarter at making the box smaller and smaller. Right. We learn better ways to do something, and we become very efficient at it. But as we age, we don't have as good a fluid intelligence taking on new tasks. That's because the brain is less neuroplastic. That's why it's important to continue to challenge ourselves with new languages, new cultures, new places to go, new music. All these things help our brain stay more neuroplastic. But paraxanthine has been shown to do that as well. Do
these compounds and ingredients, you take them together, or do you take them separately? Or how do you find these ingredients in certain supplements? Like, what's the best modality? How do you consume those supplements?
Yeah, so they're very popular. These energy ingredients are very popular in pre-workouts, energy drinks, thermogenic products, like fat loss products.
I mean, a lot of energy drinks, let's face it, have sugar though.
Exactly.
So how do you choose the best type?
Yeah, so there's a new one from some friends of mine, the Hess brothers that own Hess Oil and Gas. They're multi-billionaires. They came to me and wanted me to formulate an energy drink called Update. And actually, the Kardashians are big fans of it. They shared it. And it has the paraxanthine. It does not have sugar or artificial sweeteners or artificial colors or artificial flavors. It's extremely natural. It just has nootropics and paraxanthine.
Incredible. Okay, I want to talk about some of the things that my own clients struggle with. For someone that is looking into getting into the journey of like taking supplements, I would always recommend get your blood tests done first. Certain blood tests for certain people. Obviously, as we know, we're all very unique in terms of our vitamin and minerals deficiencies, our intolerance to food, the biodiversity in our gut based on the countries that we're living in. So all of these things matter, right? It isn't just like I'm going to go and prescribe a supplement because that's what you need. Without doing these tests, you shouldn't just go and buy any supplement. So can you take me on a little bit of a journey for someone who is just kind of starting out their supplements in their 20s? What are the kind of tests that you recommend someone should take to try to understand? And what are the first, let's say, 3 supplements that someone who is just starting out their journey, who cares about fitness, has a 9-to-5 job, and someone who doesn't have a lot of great sleep.
Okay. I think the point that you're making about bioindividuality is very important. That's a huge part of my quest on Mind Valley, is really exploring that and understanding that the one size fits all is definitely not the case. There are some supplements that I think are foundational that we can discuss. But around that actually reminds me of something that I've been getting a lot lately, is people saying, well, supplements are meant to be supplemental. Yes, that's true. And yes, like we should have great sleep. We should have a good diet. We should get hydration. We should take care of ourselves. We should avoid smoking and drinking. All these different habits that are good. And saying that supplements should be supplemental on top of that, sure. But I believe now supplements are foundational, just as foundational as those other things, because history is different, where there was not the EMFs, there was not the glyphosate, there wasn't 5,000 chemical compounds being introduced every single year that we don't understand, that is in our food supply, that's in our water supply. We aren't in the past being exposed to all the things that we're being exposed to now. Testosterone on average in men was around 1,200 50 to 100 years ago. It's now around 200.
Crazy.
Men are infertile. They're less alpha. We're losing muscle mass. We're losing our libido. We're losing bone mineral density. And there's something happening. And women as well are not as fertile as they used to be. Puberty is now, like the onset of menarche is happening at 8, 9, 10 years old instead of 14. And the age in which menopause is happening is changing radically. Our endocrine system, our hormones, is being radically affected by all these things in our environment. And so I believe that supplements are very foundational. I looked at my biological aging the other day, and it was around 0.75. I'm aging slower than my chronological age, and that's ideal. And there's people that are aging faster than their chronological age. So I think understanding that's important, but certainly understanding your genetics and the epigenetic, the gene expression, as well as understanding your gut microbiome, your current blood work, and how you're just feeling, like where you're at emotionally, mentally, spiritually, are all important on what you should be supplementing. And hopefully someone can do that blood work, can do those gene tests. It's becoming a lot more easy to do those things now. It's a lot more accessible to do those things now. You know, it used to be a kind of thing that just Brian Johnson could afford, but that's changing very quickly to where if someone spent, even $500, they could get a lot of information back. And certainly if you spent a few $1,000s, you could get all of that information. So we're in a time that's changing pretty quickly. But I do believe foundationally, if I was to give a couple supplements that everyone should be on, I do think a multivitamin, but this is important, that has methylated B vitamins.
Because there's a lot of controversy now that a lot of multivitamins don't actually work. So how do you know which multivitamin to take? I mean, there's a ton of brands out there selling a ton of multivitamins. You know, there's a ton of very popular supplement brands that don't necessarily provide great supplements. So what is someone looking for when they go not just on Amazon, but in a store, in a pharmacy, and picking a supplement?
Great point. And I think your typical Centrum or whatever probably is not what I'm talking about, or these Flintstone vitamins or whatever.
Or gummies.
Yeah, the gummies. The gummies are very incomplete. I wouldn't recommend a gummy, period. But methylated B vitamins means that they're in their active form. So instead of cyanocobalamin, which is cyanide-bound B12, yes, I said that right, like a toxic substance bound to B12 is the typical supplement form that's often in cereal and bread and things like that. This is a terrible form of B12. What we want is methylcobalamin, the methylated form that's in its active form. Most importantly is 5-methyltetrahydrofolate, which also can be called methylfolate. And this is related to the MTHFR gene. About 40% of us do not convert in a multi-enzymatic step process folate to methylfolate, the form that actually the body needs. So we can have, if we looked at our blood, we could have plenty of folate, but we could actually be anemic because we don't have the active form in our cells. And so this is important that we're getting the active, best versions of these B vitamins. So that means that they're all methylated. For B6, it's P5P, etc. The other point that's really important is the mineral component in the multivitamin. Most multivitamins don't have enough of the minerals. They don't have enough magnesium because it takes up room. It means more capsules. So 1 a day is a joke. That's not going to have enough. You'd really need like 4 to 8 capsules of a multi to actually have enough, which is fine if you're dividing that over day and night. But you want with the minerals to get the organic forms of the minerals that are actually high bioavailability. What's best is these amino acid chelates. So basically that means that the mineral is combined with an amino acid. So something like magnesium glycinate. So that's glycine and magnesium. This is high bioavailability. Magnesium oxide is very low bioavailability. So you're not getting, even though the elemental amount of the mineral may look the same on the label, the difference to your body could be massive, like 3 or 4x. So this is the difference with a multivitamin. And this is why we can't just get kind of broad data across a population and say, oh, multivitamins don't work. Most people, probably only 1% of the multivitamins on the market meet the criteria I'm talking about.
Right. Okay, so B vitamins, but multivitamins have a lot more than just a B. So what are we actually looking for when we're going to purchase it? Like, talk to me about a brand that you highly recommend that people should go and buy.
Probably my most favorite is Pure Encapsulations. They are a clinical brand, but they really take extra steps at making sure there's not the fillers, the binders, etc. in there. Probably next up would be a brand like Thorne. These are just really at the most elite level. Now, be aware, these are more expensive, but you're not only paying for what you're getting because they're doing the quality control. And by the way, with B vitamins, you have to spend a lot more money on quality control because they're not necessarily always stable. You have to do what's called overage in these formulations so that it meets the label claim 2 years later. Not just at time of manufacturing, but for the full 2 years of the shelf life. That work has been done on these high-end clinical brands. That work is not done when you're buying some random Amazon brand. And because these brands are more expensive, like Thorne and Pure Encapsulations, there's a lot of counterfeiting on Amazon. So that's something frustrating too. So you may think you're buying Pure Encapsulations or Thorne or Designs for Health or some of these expensive brands, but you may be getting a counterfeit product. So if you go on Amazon, make sure that you're buying it from GNC or Vitamin Shop or Thorne or Pure Encapsulations themselves selling it on Amazon.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of controversy around Amazon lately with all these counterfeit products. So what you're saying is that for someone that's just starting out into their supplement journey, a multivitamin is enough at them.
I think that's a big one. And I think, from there, I would look at gut health. Gut health is extremely important. This is where it gets a little complicated. We can dive into it because we know that the gut and the brain are deeply connected. We used to think that's where digestion was and that's about it. Then we realized that about 70 to 80% of the immune system lies there.
Right.
That's true. Next up, we found about 70 to 80% of the neurotransmitters are in the gut. We think about this being the place, the brain being the place where all the neurotransmitters are. That's not true. The majority of your happiness from serotonin, the majority of your focus or productivity is in your gut with acetylcholine and dopamine. That's happening in your gut. So if your gut is dysregulated, if your gut is dysfunctional, a leaky gut, for example, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be focused. When you're in the fetus, when you're in the womb, you have the gut and the brain are connected. They're together. And it's as you grow that they separate. So they're really one thing. And so prebiotic, my favorite one is Pre4Pro. This is something called a phage that not only eats the bad bacteria in a dysbiotic gut, but it promotes the good bacteria in a healthy gut. And then from there, probiotics, I'm actually kind of on the fence on because most probiotics are not that stable. They're underdosed. They're not stable to like heat and light and moisture. They are underdosed. Your gut can be highly different for the reasons that you were talking about, because you're traveling, because you're eating different foods, because of your immune system. Your gut is highly variable. You don't know where it is. The gut is intelligent. So to me, what makes more sense is giving the prebiotic and then giving the postbiotic. Now, this is a new area. Postbiotic means the short chain fatty acid, in particular butyrate, that's in your gut that probiotics make. And that's what keeps your gut truly healthy, is this postbiotic. And the most optimal form of a postbiotic is tributylin. So this is the triglyceride form of the short chain fatty acid butyrate, tributylin. And that's the one you want to get. So I would look at Pre4Pro, tributylin. And if I was to take a probiotic, I would look at spore-based probiotics like DE111, because the spore ones are actually more stable to heat, light, and moisture.
And how do you usually, I would go to the store and pick up a probiotic, and some says you need to refrigerate them, others are not. So what's the difference?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And I think there's not a lot of research on how stable they are. They say to put them in the fridge or the freezer, but really we don't know. And depending on how much light is getting through the bottle, how much moisture is getting in, they can be very unstable over time, especially across a 2-year shelf life. It may help certainly to put it in a dark area, a dry area, and certainly a cool area to help with their stability, but you don't know how they traveled to get to that store. If you're buying them on Amazon and they're exposed to heat, across the travel to get to you, or they're in a store that's hot, you don't know. So to me, I would prefer to just get these spore-based ones because they're stable.
Okay, wonderful. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was someone that definitely drank alcohol in my 20s until my mid-30s. And I quit drinking alcohol. It's been quite a while now. I'm so happy I did that. But, there's so many out there. They're still drinking alcohol, still getting intoxicated, still having the hangovers. For someone that has done that for, a decade from their 20s to their 30s and decided in their 30s they don't want to do that anymore, and they've pretty much screwed up their liver and many other organs in your gut, what would then you recommend for someone who wants to get better liver health, someone who was an alcohol drinker and decided didn't want to do it anymore, or someone who's still drinking alcohol? And how do you protect your liver? Okay,
so first off, don't get too down in the dumps here, because the liver is the most regenerative organ in the body. It can truly bounce back. It's a powerful organ. So next up, the special ingredient I'm going to tell you about that no one knows about, that would be great for hangovers if you're currently drinking, as well as protecting the liver, healing the liver, is going to be an ingredient called dihydromycetin. MYR.
Where do you find that?
You can. There's not many companies currently selling it, but there is some amazing studies on reducing hangover, but also with alcoholics, reducing the desire to have alcohol. And then for people that have had liver damage, it's reversing that liver damage, improving liver health. So whether you're just someone who has drinks and feels exhausted and hungover the next day, this is going to help. If you're someone who's an alcoholic and you want to reduce your desire or cravings for alcohol, this helps. If you're someone who just wants to improve the health status of your liver, this helps. It's one of the most powerful nutrients I know. Beyond that, N-acetylcysteine. This is going to increase endogenous, meaning in the body, glutathione levels, the master antioxidant.
I love glutathione, by the way. I take it every day.
So N-acetylcysteine is a great way to boost glutathione levels, along with vitamin C that helps recycle glutathione. Those would be some. And then an herb called milk thistle.
Yeah, I love milk thistle.
In particular, if it's standardized for silymarin and or silibinin. Those two compounds that are present in milk thistle are very powerful at improving the health function of the liver. Lastly is phosphatidylcholine. It's also known as lecithin.
Okay, and are those just easily available to find?
Yeah,
as well?
Most of those are. Dihydromycetin, DHM, is a little bit newer. There's just a few companies selling it right now.
And what have you been diagnosed with fatty liver disease?
Well, first off, you definitely want to see a doctor in those cases, but absolutely these ingredients are probably going to be foundational in your health and recovery.
And it's the same for non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Exactly, right? Yes.
Okay, moving on to the third technique or strategy when it comes to sugar and sugar cravings and skin health. Now, we all know how damaging sugar is to the body because it forms glycation and basically loses the elastin of your collagen in your skin and the firmness and the sagging. And not a lot of people who consume way too much sugar, as teenagers, moving up to your 20s and 30s, you start really noticing that in your skin if you're not taking care of your skin health. So what do you recommend as strategies from a supplement perspective when someone has this addiction to sugar?
That's a great question. About 87% of Americans are metabolically dysfunctional. What's behind metabolic dysfunction is blood sugar dysregulation, or also said as blood glucose, also meaning insulin dysregulation. When insulin is chronically elevated, when blood sugar is chronically elevated, inflammation is elevated. Dyslipidemia, meaning your blood lipids and triglycerides are dysregulated. We're going to have more glycation, as you mentioned, blood sugar damage, which actually leads to AGEs, advanced glycation end products. Mm-hmm. It's going to lead to more oxidative damage. It's going to lead to more mitochondrial dysfunction and a lack of cellular energy, ATP. So this is it's going to lead to faster biological aging over chronological aging. It's going to lead to almost all diseases. About 99% of diseases are metabolic in nature, not genetic in nature. Meaning if we can get our blood sugar down and controlled, then we can age slower. We can avoid most diseases. So this is one of the most profound ways that we can anti-age and have a better, not only lifespan, but health span, is controlling blood sugar. I believe the most powerful ingredient for that is going to be dihydroberberine, an ingredient I helped bring to market. So berberine, we've heard of Nature's Ozempic, all this stuff on TikTok, because it does not only improve the AMP kinase pathway, activating that, which is associated with anti-aging, but it also is a GLP-1 agonist. And so that GLP-1 is a pathway that is protecting us, improving insulin sensitivity, helping shuttle glucose to muscle instead of fat, and improving fatty acid metabolism. So this is how people are losing weight rapidly on GLP-1s. But dihydroberberine does that, and does that much better than berberine. So berberine has a host of side effects. It often has GI distress. The bioavailability is very poor. You have to take much higher doses and take it more often. With dihydroberberine, you're only taking 100 to 200 milligrams twice a day instead of at least 500 3 times a day, and you're not getting the GI distress. This is the most powerful nutrient I know to not only, again, help with blood sugar management, but to improve your energy, to improve your mitochondrial function, to improve your biological aging.
Which brand is that?
The branded version of dihydroberberine is called Glucovantage, and it's in probably about 30 different products right now. If you are to search Amazon, definitely look for more trusted brands, but there are a number out there.
Okay, amazing. Now, do you also have a recommendation for someone who is kind of maybe struggling with diabetes? And aside from berberine, and I mean, it's also used for people who have diabetes, but someone who is kind of struggling with maybe type 2 based on obesity, what would you recommend as a go-to supplement?
Okay, so, I mean, one, obviously see your clinician, endocrinologist to manage your diabetes, of course. But some things that I would most certainly look at would be not only the dihydroberberine, which I think is the most powerful ingredient in managing blood sugar. I think another ingredient that stacks well with it is cinnamon. But in particular, about 90% of the cinnamon on the market is not actual cinnamon. It's a different polyphenol compound. Ceylon cinnamon is the one that you truly want. That's true cinnamon. And Ceylon, Ceylon, is the one that has the high polyphenolic content that can help dramatically with blood sugar. Another compound that's truly important is a trace mineral that most people that are diabetic or insulin resistant tend to be very low in, deficient in, is chromium. Chromium is a very important compound. The more dysregulated your blood sugar is, the more important chromium becomes. When we look at people in those populations, their chromium is extremely deficient. And chromium's very important for insulin sensitivity.
Now, a lot of people that I work with also struggle with weight loss. Mm-hmm. And, like you say, it's very bio-individual and everyone's so different. Mm-hmm. When you're traveling extensively, like I did all of May, I was just retaining a lot of water and I had to go and get like lymphatic system massages regularly. But there's a lot of people out there who, struggle with jet lag and not eating right and, eating junk because there's no time and not sleeping well, How do you fit in exercise if you're having such a busy schedule, in a sense where, you can kind of like suppress appetite so that you can not eat so much junk, be able to train and have enough energy, but still know that you're getting the right nutrients for your body? From a standpoint of jet lagged, overworked, eating junk food, what can you recommend as the best supplement for someone who is trying to keep their exercise regime on track, but also like really want to, fast track weight loss?
Okay, so I got a couple here that are going to be really exciting that most people don't know about. There's an ingredient called grains of paradise that is from Africa. It's a spice that's been used in food for thousands of years. The key active in it is called 6-paradol. What this does is upregulate brown adipose tissue activity. Brown adipose tissue is a special type of fat. You only have about 7 ounces, basically a very small amount, maybe 99% of your fat on your body is white adipose tissue. A very small amount that's around your scapula, around your neck, is going to be this brown adipose tissue. It's actually in your body when you're a baby before you have the ability to shiver and create heat thermogenesis, the baby uses brown adipose tissue to keep itself warm. Brown adipose tissue is now the holy grail as we understand it in people that can eat as much as they want and still have high thermogenesis. And so we're looking at ways to increase brown adipose tissue number of cells and their activity. One way is actually cold plunging. We've found that actually improves brown adipose tissue activity. But two is these very spicy compounds, and in particular, grains of paradise is probably the most potent. The dose is only 40 milligrams. And we found at 40 milligrams, it increases caloric expenditure over 100 calories per day without stimulation. That's pretty significant. When we did a study with 160 milligrams, this is a small, not statistically significant study that was done in-house, but we did it with about 3 athletes. We're going to do a larger one soon. They burned over 250 calories. That's as much as being on a treadmill for an hour.
That's crazy.
So this is a really exciting one. Another ingredient that I've brought to market is called BABA, L-beta amino isobutyric acid. This is actually what's called a myokine, a signal that's released from muscle when you're exercising intensely. Your body sends out this signal that says, this is what's happening. We're exercising very intensely, and a whole host of things are happening throughout the body, like increasing muscle mass, increasing nerve connections to those muscles so you can recruit them better, increasing fat utilization, so decreasing fat mass, improving bone mineral density, improving neuroplasticity, improving your cardiovascular function and VO2 max. All of this is happening with intense exercise, but it's as it relates to the signal going up. When I supplement with this ingredient, we found that signal goes up in the body. So this is literally the signal for intense exercise and all the benefits. And you can supplement with it and enhance your exercise routine so that you get more reps, more steps when you're taking the supplement called L-beta, also known as mitoburn.
Okay, and where can we get these supplements? The grains of paradise and this one?
Yeah, so the grains of paradise is called calorie burn or calora burn, and the BABA is called mitoburn, and they're in, again, a number of products that you could find online, in particular on Amazon.
Calorie burn, and how do you know if that's the right kind of compound? Because
that's the branded one.
That's the branded name.
Calorie burn, no E in that. It's like calora burn or calorie burn.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that in ingredients yet. I'm going to take a look.
It's pretty new. And mitoburn, they're fairly new, but they're in some products online.
And do you think they're available globally, or is it just like primarily US at the moment?
Primarily US, but there are some companies that you can get them from globally.
Yeah, I'm going to test them out and let you know how I feel in them too.
Okay.
Now, I'm in my 40s, just like you're in your 50s.
I can't believe that, but yes.
I'm turning 44 this year. So obviously the topic on menopause is something that I've really been diving deep into because I obviously have a lot of friends now who are either experiencing symptoms of menopause, but also like want to delay the onset of developing menopause. Now, there's this also another very hot topic now on perimenopause and how women starting developing symptoms much early on, like even a decade before, and they don't know that they're having those symptoms.
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about that because, as you said, when we first started this podcast, like the world is changing where people are developing a lot of symptoms quite early on when they should be developing much later on in life.
Yeah.
And to create like a massive health alert and awareness about that so that women are understanding their bodies better, but also not just that, parents who have daughters are able to also educate their children as to what they need to do, especially if your children are on birth control pills, got out of birth control pills, you're a young mom and wanting to understand about your own body and your whole physiology, your own hormone health imbalances, and so on. There's a lot of women that I work with who are developing PCOS, thyroid issues, ulcerative colitis at such a young age that you wouldn't normally believe that this is happening to you. You don't even come from a line of family that have that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about perimenopause in our fifth kind of strategy, and how we can kind of implement and integrate supplements into that from the symptoms of perimenopause. And then what would you recommend for someone who is already experiencing menopause?
Okay. Great questions. I do believe that we are under attack hormonally with endocrine dysfunction. Endocrine meaning the hormones, and obviously the doctor for that would be an endocrinologist. But certainly there's great naturopaths that could specialize in that. What's happening is we're being exposed to phytoestrogens, plant estrogens that are weak estrogens, like kudzu, like hops, and certainly soy. Some other things that we're exposed to are xenoestrogens, plastics. We know that we've seen that not only microplastics, but nanoplastics are in every part of our bodies. It's in the womb and the fetus. It's in men's penises. Like there's all kinds of things coming out that's showing that these plastics are pervasive in our body, and it's having a massive impact on our health and our hormones. Lastly is metalloestrogens, these things that are in deodorants and some of these products that we're putting on our body, detergents that are literally absorbing through the skin. We have to be hyper vigilant about what we're putting on and in our bodies, because it's having a massive impact. When we see this, these plastics have runoff in streams, we're seeing salmon in the streams become infertile. We're seeing the bears that eat the salmon become infertile, and we're becoming infertile too. And what is happening as a result when you're getting all these weak estrogens is that you're, one, not exerting as much testosterone and estrogen as you should. Again, we're seeing men's testosterones plummet, and we're also seeing women have very dysregulated estrogen as a result too. So they're, one, potentially going through puberty sooner, age of menarche, but two, they may have an earlier onset of menopause. And this is all because of all these different weak estrogens in the environment. And so one, I would try and avoid those things as much as possible. Two, I would go back, and like I said, when you talked about PCOS, dihydroberberine would be very helpful with that. Three, I would look at, there's a few ingredients that can be helpful at minimizing those symptoms. And those are going to be GLA, gamma-linolenic acid, from borage oil or evening primrose oil. Also, chasteberry, also called Vitex or Vitex, is going to help minimize those symptoms and help deal with estrogen metabolism. Another one is called DIM, diindolylmethane. That one's going to help you. You can look up DIM. That's going to help with estrogen metabolism and conversion as well. There's different forms of estrogen, estrone, beta estradiol, and that metabolism, without getting too complex, is very important. And for men, what's really important, again, we're seeing a lack of libido, muscle mass. There's actually a high conversion with the aromatase enzyme of testosterone to estrogen. Now, men are trying to get on these anti-aromatase drugs to prevent that conversion and boost testosterone again and lower their estrogen. But again, we're just exposed to so many weak estrogens in the environment that it's really hard to figure out and control. And there's just so many things that are doing this.
What are your thoughts on collagen?
I love collagen. Huge fan, because we're not eating nose to tail anymore. We're not eating the skin, the hoof, feet. We're not eating the intestines or guts or tendons or ligaments. These are all the places that collagen would be found, right? This is the calo, means the glue of the body. That's Latin for essentially glue. And about a third of the protein in the body is not muscle, but all this connective tissue. And so if you want a healthier gut, you want healthier hair, skin, and nails, you want healthy bone, collagen is going to be very important for that. In particular, if you can get hydrolyzed collagen, meaning that it's digested or broken down more, it's going to be more effective at a lower dose. So if I was taking just regular collagen, I might get 20 grams twice a day. If I was taking hydrolyzed, it could be 5 to 10 grams twice a day. And that's going to help brighten that skin, help your hair growth, and protect your gut, things like that.
What are your thoughts on Shilajit?
I do like it. One, it's an adaptogen. Adaptogens, I did not mention that earlier, and so thank you for bringing that up. Adaptogens are actually probably one of my favorite class of ingredients because it helps your body be more resilient. They're bimodal, meaning they can help improve your sleep and improve your energy. So that's really cool because we're actually improving our ability to take on stress in the body. That's known as the allostatic capacity, or your capacity for stress, your stress bucket. You can actually grow your stress bucket and be more resilient, be more hard to kill, so to speak, by taking adaptogens. So things like rhodiola, ashwagandha, shilajit, like all these ingredients, bacopa, are very protective to the body and help you take on greater stress mentally and physically. So I'm a big fan of shilajit. Also, it's been shown to improve ATP production, so literally helping you increase energy production.
I would have clients that have been not getting their period for quite a while and have been taking Shilajit, and they got their period within the first 30 days.
We're not very resistant to stress right now. Like again, that stress bucket, when it's overflowing, having what's called hormetic stress, like stress that should be positive, EU stress, maybe not positive because our bucket's overflowing. If we just lost our job, if we just had a death of someone in the family, if we are going through a breakup, if we're going through very difficult situations, things that may be positive stresses, normally cold plunges, keto, fasting, working out, may not be because your stress bucket's overflowing. These adaptogens will help you adapt to stress better and therefore help get your body optimized again. So it can literally improve blood pressure, blood sugar, hormones, your sleep, your energy, like across the board. If we look across the culture, the most important herb in each culture are these adaptogens. In Russia, it's rhodiola. In Asia, it's ginseng. In South America, it's maca. In India, it's ashwagandha. And they're historic. They're important for these reasons.
I'm obsessed with ginseng. I take that every day too. Do you consume ginseng yourself?
I love all the adaptogens. I cycle through. I love them.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So your suggestions for perimenopause and menopause in terms of supplements are the same or do they differ?
The GLA and the chasteberry are going to be the most important, and the DIM. Those three are really important. Those would be the ones that I would look at highly. And you may vary the dose based on where you're at with that. Again, take a look at the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. That's important as well.
Okay. And, I love longevity. We all do. We talk about that so much, especially because of Brian Johnson. And I met him actually quite recently in a summit in Dubai. And it was, a lot of talk about, how you can enhance your health and supplements. And, obviously he's kind of changed the game and how people look at supplements these days. And we spoke about this the other day when we were having a conversation about it, and how people were really skeptical about supplements in the past. And now they're more inclined to start taking them because he's really shown the science behind that. And, I have always been on the fence between, supplements and not taking supplements because I grew up in a home where we did everything through food. Yeah. There's nothing really that can replace that. And, people that would tell you that, all the nutrients you can't find in food and supplements is the only way to go is lying to you. Because really the first mode of protocol is your food. Get your nutrition, get all the vitamins and minerals that you can from food. And then I mean, it's called a supplement for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a supplement because you're supplementing on already great diet. And if you're someone that doesn't have a great diet, you fix your diet first, and then you take the supplement to help kind of take that 360. Now, for someone that is really focused on trying to anti-age from a biological perspective, as in reversing the age of your cells, for example, like I am really big on the SIRT6 supplement, which is just one of the sirtuins. So we've derived ours from seaweed, for example. And in our clinical trials, we've noticed that, it's a reduction in inflammation, but also it works in brain health and brain capacity, and it decreases your chances of getting Alzheimer's disease. So, for those that really want to, for example, keep their telomeres.
Is this fucoxanthin? Is that the compound from brown seaweed?
It's just SIRT6. It's a SIRT6 activator that we use. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you using that particular compound?
Yeah, I've used fucoxanthin in the past and explored that. It comes from seaweed, and yes, there's a host. There's 9 different sirtuins called the SIRT genes, and SIRT6 is one of them. And we associate those with, again, that goes back to the idea that I was talking about, stress capacity. These are essentially the resilience or longevity genes, or your harder to kill genes. The more you do hormetic stress, which means eustress, positive stress, so things like, again, cold plunging, fasting, working out, it's going to improve sirtuin gene expression.
Exactly. So as someone that wants to keep their telomeres long and lengthy, and make sure that they're obviously, aging slower biologically, as in the age of their cells, than their actual chronological age, what would you recommend as the most top supplements for people who want to really up their game in lengthening their telomeres, or keeping it kind of slowing the process of aging?
Yeah, as far as supplements, really we're looking at things that slow telomere shortening. The only thing that I know that's lengthened telomeres is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That's really the only thing that's reversing aging, and pretty dramatically.
Have you heard of astragalus root?
I was just going to talk about that. Yeah. So TA65 comes from astragalus, or astragalus, or however you want to pronounce it. And that has been explored. That's probably one of the most potent compounds as far as telomere length. Also polyphenols. When we look at blue zones and living a long time, polyphenols tend to be very high in the diet. So we look at things like green tea with EGCG, resveratrol, like in red wine and grapes, pterostilbene in blueberries, quercetin in onions and apples, fisetin in strawberries, apigenin and parsley. These compounds, like the catechins in chocolate and chlorogenic acid in coffee, these compounds are powerful at anti-aging. One of the biggest reasons is they're actually preventing the breakdown of NAD with inhibiting NADase, also called CD38. So that's the enzyme that breaks down NAD. So this means when you take polyphenols, they're enhancing the amount of circulating NAD that's available, which is going to help with energy production and is one of the most potent ways of anti-aging we know of. Another part of that equation is going to be directly increasing NAD production. Niacin and some of these other compounds are going to be the way that we know to do that best. I like the full flush niacin, which can be uncomfortable for people. If you take like nicotinic acid, full flush niacin, you will get what's called paresthesis, where you get that flushing and tingling, and it can kind of feel like almost like a sunburn for like 45 minutes. You do adapt to it over time. But there are like no flush versions of niacin, like niacinamide or inositol hexanicotinate that don't flush. I don't think they're quite as effective, but they can be good if you can't deal with the flushing. But also there's NMN and NR, nicotinamide riboside. I do prefer NMN over NR. And there's a new version, because NMN got semi-banned
Yes, I heard.
They came out with a new version, and this is quite interesting. I've been reading some preliminary data. So there's like one study, and it's with animals and in vitro, that it's showing a dramatically higher effect on NAD production over NMN itself, and it's called NMNH. And you actually can get this on Amazon right now. I don't know how long it's available, or we'll see. But if you're to pair up NMN, NMNH, niacin, so these NAD boosters, with NAD inhibitors, NADAs inhibitors, sorry, that would be really powerful. So and the most potent ones are probably fisetin and apigenin. Beyond that, things that are going to help with mitochondrial function, that would be CoQ10, in particular, ubiquinol, PQQ, and then another one that I've helped bring to market that could be a new vitamin is ergothioneine. This is a trace amino acid that you only found in mushrooms, organ meats, and really we don't consume very much of it. But what's interesting is there's a unique transporter system in the body for it. It's called the ETT or the OCT1. This transports ergothioneine. Your body literally has its own transporter for this ingredient, and haven't studied it until recently. And then there's a unique storage system for it in your body. And what's really potent about this is it protects the mitochondria, not just the cell, but the mitochondria. So this is potentially one of the most exciting nutrients in anti-aging right now is ergothioneine. And it's going to enhance mitochondrial function. The branded name is known as MitoPrime. And you can get this on Amazon and some other places in some products. But that would be probably my stack is NMN or NMNH, niacin, ergothioneine, CoQ10, PQQ, fisetin, apigenin, and then potentially astragalus as well.
Astragalus, okay.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on IV drips?
Love them. I do that maybe about once a month myself. I'm a big fan. That's the most potent way to increase NAD levels. Absolutely.
But how about vitamin D? Do you believe that it's better to get it like a shot of vitamin D, an injection or a drip, than having to supplement into the supplement?
Unless you have like a genetic dysfunction through conversion of cholecalciferol, vitamin D3, then I believe getting D3 orally is fine. I would definitely get the soft gel. The dry form is not nearly as good. And if you take the soft gel, it's better to have it with a fatty meal. So if you take it with, if you have olive oil or butter or whatever with your meal, that's better. So definitely take it with a meal. But obviously sunshine is going to be a great way to get your vitamin D. But a lot of people not only are wearing the sunscreens, and exposure to sun can damage your skin. So getting sun early or late in the day, having more skin exposed is important. And then taking high dose vitamin D3. If you're in northern climates, then I would be taking at least 10,000 IUs a day. If I was getting enough sunshine, maybe around 5,000 IUs.
Yeah, I mentioned that because, I just came back from Manchester. We were also in Finland together, but there weren't really that many super sunny days. So it's really a struggle for people that live in countries where it's not always hot and you don't really get a lot of vitamin D outdoors, So I think supplementing is a really good way. And for just to understand the kind of supplements is really important. Shawn, we had such an information-packed session. Wow, my mind is blown. Like you've taken me on a completely different supplement journey, and I'm sure all of our listeners will be like mind blown too. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that before we end this session?
Well, some ways to find me is the Mind Valley Quest that I just launched on.
So talk to me a little bit about the Mind Valley Quest. What is it?
Yeah, so a quest means basically a masterclass on the Mind Valley platform. It's around 15 to 20 minute sessions, and I walk you through how to find and build your own supplement stack, how to avoid the scams, etc.
Cool.
And then The Energy Formula is my book that's available on audio, on ebook, hardcover, softcover. It's an international bestseller, Forbes, USA Today listed. That's a biohacking book. I not only go into supplements, but all the other methods of biohacking and anti-aging. And then my social media at Shawn Wells, SHAWN. I have tons of information, all the stacks, graphs, infographics. I walk you through new ingredients, new studies, all that good stuff.
Shawn, this podcast episode has been probably one of the best I've ever filmed. Our listeners will take away so much important stuff from there, but also it just gives you so much confidence as to, what kind of supplements you need to take at different journeys in your life. I think we covered a lot of really important topics, and topics which are just not just hot and trending right now, where people are truly experiencing, and you're giving information which isn't really readily available online, and I think, for anyone that is listening to this right now, if you have anyone in your network who needs to listen to this, please reshare it, get them on the right kind of supplements. Don't just follow anybody on social media and get the wrong stuff, because really you're just doing more harm than good to your body. Thank you again, Shawn, for this. It's been truly incredible.
You got it. I enjoyed this. This was so fun.